and welcome to the second annual Green Roofs and Walls of the World Virtual Summit 2013. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce keynote speaker Marianne Uhlmann, environmental horticulturalist and vegetated roofing manager with Tremco Incorporated. With this potent combination, Marianne is a great embodiment of the two halves of our green roof industry, the black arts and the green arts. Since your expertise lies in a love of respect of plants and ecology, along with a knowledge base that also embraces the roofing and waterproofing equation. I've had the extreme pleasure of knowing and working with Marianne for about 6 years now, and she's as wonderful an individual as she is talented and passionate about greening the world's roofs. Aramis and I certainly appreciate her support and are glad to include her and her husband Russ as friends. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Tremco for their continued sponsorship as our esteemed rare earth sponsor. Marianne has been involved in the collaborative design of many outstanding living roofs, including the Clinton Presidential Library and Museum in Little Rock, and the two vegetative roofs on the GSA's Sam Nunn Atlanta Federal Center, among many others. Appropriately, Marianne will be discussing her thoughts on the Biophilia Effect and how our seemingly innate connection to nature should inform our design process with the built environment. I'm sure you'll find her keynote both enlightening and inspiring. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Marianne Uhlmann, manager of the Vegetated Roofing Program at Tremco Incorporated. By trade, I'm an environmental horticulturalist, and I'm blessed to be able to work every day in a field that I love. And I'm honored to be talking to you today on the first day of the expo of this virtual summit. I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia, and the Atlanta Botanical Gardens on a very cold, blustery February day, I might add. When Linda Velasquez asked me if I would speak, I said to her, "You know, Linda, I don't have big name recognition," which is true. She said, "You do have a lot of hands-on experience, and you have a lot of passion for the subject," which is true. So I thought, what better subject to talk about to kick off this part of the summit than to talk about the biophilic effect. Once you understand the biological mechanisms of this theory, you'll understand why I pose the question: is it just inevitable that we design and build green roofs and walls?
For those of you who know of the research and writings of E.O. Wilson, that question isn't nearly as preposterous as it sounds. Biologist and Pulitzer Prize-winning author Edward O. Wilson first used the expression biophilia in his book titled by the same name in 1984. He was, to say the least, an astute observer of nature. While studying ants and arthropods in South America, he began to wonder about what seemed to him to be mankind's innate connection with nature. In Biophilia, Wilson saw an answer to mankind's fears, such as our revulsion for snakes, to our affinity we have for plants and natural landscapes. And it is that aspect of the biophilic effect that intrigues me and gives me an answer as to why we have the need to introduce natural systems into the built environment. The evidence, Wilson said, is overwhelming that given a choice, people wish to bring the beauty and harmony of nature within sight. When possible, they like to blend these qualities into the details of their daily existence, because in so doing, they add to their own sense of worth and security. And from his observations, he went on to define 3 physical features in a natural landscape that seem to trigger these innate responses to nature, such as looking down on a landscape from a position of height, to a desire to see and hear water, to feelings of both risk and security felt when looking at an open landscape dotted with islands of trees. E.O. Wilson's observations sparked a flurry of activity among scientists, from sociologists to psychologists to ecologists. Many of you are aware of Robert S. Ulrich's research conducted to prove the value of giving patients natural views during hospital stays. This research concluded that a patient's stay would be reduced by 8.5%. Stephen R. Kellert, ecologist and a close associate of Wilson's, worked in earnest to develop a formal process of design which would incorporate the biophilic effect. His aim was to prove that architecture should strive to create restorative environments which incorporated natural patterns and created place-based relationships. But both Ulrich and Kellert pointed out that great architecture and landscape design, which unknowingly had incorporated the biophilic effect, existed well in advance of the 21st century. By and large, these great works invoked the emotions typical of a restorative design, such as Central Park by Frederick R. Olmsted, the great cathedrals of Europe, whose ornate facades and soaring interiors inspire a sense of awe even today, due most likely to the replications of complex natural shapes. But in the mid-20th century, the rush to build, by and large, overcame the need to design for mankind, and our urban environments suffered.
Today, our urban environments present challenges that threaten our well-being in many ways. Certainly not intentional, but still we need to begin to deal with these challenges. Understanding the biophilic effect and how to incorporate it into the design decision-making process is essential if we're going to build and maintain healthy cities. And a core principle of this design process is how to make use of plants and how to replicate complex natural settings. And what better place to do that than on a vegetated roof?
With green roofs, or vegetated roofs as I like to call them, we have the perfect opportunity to express all three of Wilson's physical features that trigger deep innate responses to nature within man. Looking down from above, the lure and sound of water, whether from a fountain or other water feature, or even the interpretive look of a dry creek bed. The balance of feelings elicited from viewing a landscape with outcroppings of trees and rocks, mysterious and enticing, with the reward of the refuge of reaching the shady trees. So by now, I'm sure some of you are saying, "Hey, Marianne, you are preaching to the choir." And no doubt I am. And no doubt many of you are already incorporating E.O. Wilson's concepts. But allow me to challenge you all with this. Are you really replicating complex natural systems to create a total engagement of people to place, not just for the enormous benefits of performance that they can provide? Are you using plants in their natural, intense ecological complexity as often as you can? When you provide a patient in a hospital or a student in a classroom with a complex palette of plants to look out on, you provide that patient or student with actual neurological nourishment, which has been proven recently from research. And what about below the surface? The complexity and structure of life in the soil, in the form of mycorrhizae that should be given equal concern, thought, and planning to provide this beneficial symbiotic relationship of soil-borne fungi with plant root systems. I think that too often we fool ourselves into believing that engineered soils or growing media must almost be sterile to perform, and this simply is not true. And what about the unintended plants, the ones we call weeds? Alan Armitage, well-known horticulturalist and researcher, has a wonderful way of describing weeds. He says, "A weed is a plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered." I love that description. So if we're committed to including the biophilic effect in our design thought process, this could extend to taking advantage of these little volunteers, keeping the more tame species, and judiciously removing those that appear that would harm the waterproofing system below. We are, of course, bound by the structure itself, the dead load capacities, which often dictate soil depths and, as a result, the plant palette. But maybe it's time to create the green infrastructure first and then the building to hold it. Perhaps a ridiculous idea, but think about how our cities would look. Suffice it to say, creating complex natural systems on a roof is challenging, not the least of which is delivering a project on time and on budget. As in all industries, trends come and go. Today, in the green infrastructure solution industry, I fear that too often we're using solutions that are expedient and economical, only to find out that they're difficult to maintain. Perhaps it's just that we haven't explored how to employ and mimic natural systems in a cost-effective manner, producing planting methods and component products that offer sustainable, effective results. Another aspect of employing complex natural systems that we sometimes forget is that there is an ebb and flow associated with these systems: life, death, renewal, the effect of seasons, no matter what climate, on plant performance. If we're to take full advantage of the biophilic effect, we need to set the correct expectations with building owners from the start so that they understand the seasonal changes, which are very desirable and to be expected. But green infrastructure isn't just about vegetated roofs. There are walls to think about: interior, exterior, not to mention the surrounding at-ground landscape. How do you effectively use the biophilic effect in the design of living walls? When executed correctly, living walls can offer all of the attributes necessary to create full engagement of people and place. So remember the term complex natural systems. I'm sure by now you're tired of hearing me say it, but just hang in there with me. So here's what I suggest that you do. Take a walk in a forest near you. Look up. Look for vines and plants that are growing in trees. Depending on your climate, in colder climates, you won't see as many of these types of plants. In subtropical to tropical areas, you'll see entire communities. But here's my point. Think about how you might replicate the structures that these plants grow on and gamble over. At the very least, providing them with the varying shelter from sun exposure and wind that is necessary for their vibrant growth. So siting is important, and the correct balance of nutrients is vital. Horticultural innovators such as Patrick Blanc, botanist and world traveler, have been able to replicate these attributes with stunning results. Like E.O. Wilson, Patrick Blanc is an astute observer of nature. He has been able to weave together these complex plant palettes which hang from geotextiles which are irrigated with nutrient-rich water. I'll never forget how astounded I was when on vacation in British Columbia I was walking down a street in White Rock. I turned the corner and was met with this incredible living wall, at the time thought to be the largest living wall in North America. I immediately went inside and asked who had built this beautiful wall, and was told it was the good folks at Green Over Gray. While I haven't ever met anyone in that firm, I applaud your work to design and install this exquisite wall. Soil-based modular systems with integrated irrigation also offer excellent opportunities to mix things up with various plant species, whether interior or exterior. I can go on and on about green infrastructure design and the biophilic effect, but I do have a time limit here. I want to remind all of you that the green infrastructure solution industry is poised for enormous growth, and I hope all of you take advantage of the opportunity and realize that you can truly make a difference in creating restorative urban environments.
So as we begin the first day of the expo of our virtual summit, which will bring together an amazing group of well-informed and highly experienced professionals, along with those of you who are just starting out your journey in the world of green roofing, I encourage you to linger, to engage, to learn, and join in the conversations. And I hope you'll go away realizing that green infrastructure in the built environment is inevitable. It's part of your nature. I hope you enjoy the summit. Thank you so much for letting me share my bliss.